to So True, and today's devotional is entitled Best Leave It to God. And it's based on the text of 2 Samuel 15:25 through 26. One of the great challenges and choices in life when faced with overwhelming trouble is to take things into our own hands or leave them in God's hands. In life, we can find ourselves in a moment of crisis, standing at a fork in the road, having to consciously decide between trusting ourselves and resting in God's sovereignty. At that moment, the wise man and the wise woman realizes it's best to leave things with God. In 2 Samuel 15, we find King David having to flee the city of Jerusalem in the face of his own son's treachery. Absalom had stolen the hearts of the citizenry and turned them against his father. In 2 Samuel 15, we find King David having to flee the city of Jerusalem in the face of his own son's treachery. Absalom had stolen the hearts of the citizenry and turned them against his father, and he was marching against Jerusalem. In the face of Absalom's advance, David withdraws to avoid the bloodbath of a prolonged siege. Insult is added to injury as David learns that his trusted friend and wise counselor, Ahithophel, had betrayed him. He was also told that Mephibosheth, to whom he had shown great kindness, was also among the scoundrels who had conspired against him. In the midst of this chaos and crisis, David does something interesting and inspiring and instructive. For the sake of the people, the king does a noble thing and sends Zadok, his beloved priest and faithful friend, back to Jerusalem with the Ark of the Covenant, 2 Samuel 15:25 to 26. David surmised that if it was God's will for him to return as king, he would do so. Hence, there was no need to keep the Ark away from the sanctuary. The royal fugitive muses, quote, "If I find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me back and show me both it and his dwelling place. But if not, let him do to me as seems good to him." End quote. David doesn't take things into his own hands. He lovingly and trustingly places them in God's hands. Perhaps like David, your life is in a tailspin. Things are out of control in your body, your home, your business, and your ministry. Your future is out of your hands, perhaps in someone else's hands. You feel vulnerable, even exposed. You want to do something, anything. That's instinctual, that's understandable, but your choices are limited. You want to act, but you fear doing the wrong thing, only to make things worse. If that describes you, remember that even if power has been wrestled or wrested from your hands, your times are in God's hands. Psalm 31, verse 15. Nothing happens to you except by the will of God. Your emergency is in God's hands. Your enemy is in God's hands. Think about this. In the midst of your losses, don't lose your confidence in the sovereignty of God. What seems good to him is ultimately good for us, and he will work all things together for our good. Romans 8, verse 28. As I kind of wrap up, some years ago I read something that Warren Wiersbe said, and it has stuck with me and served me well, and I hope it will be a blessing to you. He said this: God gives his best to those who leave the choice with him. So here's my word of admonition. Here's my word of advice. Best leave it to God.